On a calm afternoon, as the autumn wind brushed against her cheeks, Joanna Davis was organizing picture books in the children's area of the community center library. The day's volunteer reading session had concluded successfully, and the joyful faces of the children warmed her heart. With 35 years of experience as a librarian, her passion for the job had never faded, and she found fulfillment in connecting books with kids. Since the passing of her husband Andrew 2 years prior, Joanna had been living alone in a downtown apartment. Andrew's unexpected heart attack after 40 years of marriage had changed her life drastically. Yet, believing that her husband wouldn't want her to stay lost in sorrow, she began engaging actively in community events. She participated in 3 volunteer reading sessions each week, monthly community cleanups, and most importantly, spent quality time with her family. Speaking of family, her thoughts often turned to her son Tom. Tom was a talented engineer at a prominent construction company. From a young age, he excelled in math and science, studied civil engineering in college, and steadily advanced his career post-graduation. He was a serious, responsible, and caring son who always thought of his mother. Currently, he was on a 3-month business trip in a nearby state, managing a large infrastructure project. Joanna also shared a good relationship with Tom's wife, Amanda. Before they married, Amanda had taught at an elementary school, but she became a stay-at-home mom after the birth of their daughter Kathy, who was now 5 years old. Amanda was a humble, nurturing, and dedicated woman who devoted herself to household duties and parenting. Even while Tom was away, she maintained a positive outlook, stating, "I miss him, but I'll manage because Kathy is here." Above all, Joanna's main purpose in life had become her granddaughter, Kathy. The lively 5-year-old had inherited her late grandfather's lovely blue eyes. She was inquisitive and loved listening to her grandmother's stories. Whenever she visited Joanna's apartment, she would eagerly ask, "Grandma, what book are you going to read to me today?" The moments they shared baking cookies or strolling in the park were invaluable treasures to Joanna. Every Sunday afternoon was a special time spent with Kathy. Whenever Amanda would say, "I'm sorry for bothering you," Joanna would reply, "Not at all. Being with this child energizes me." This wasn't just politeness. It genuinely came from her heart. Kathy's innocent laughter and curious questions brought vibrancy to Joanna's everyday life. Just last Sunday, Kathy had a delightful time at her grandma's place. While reading the Cinderella picture book, she asked with a serious expression, "Grandma, does magic really exist?" Joanna replied, "There is such a thing as the magic of love. The affection family members share for one another is the strongest kind of magic." Kathy nodded in agreement and peacefully fell asleep on her grandmother's lap. Tom called about once a week during his trip. Despite his complaints about work, hearing his voice, which always expressed love for his family, reassured Joanna. When he asked, "Mom, are Amanda and Kathy doing okay?" she would respond, "Of course, everyone is doing their best, so don't worry." Their daily routine was calm, with each family member fulfilling their role as they awaited Tom's return. Joanna had dealt with her grief over losing her husband and embraced this new phase of her life. She contributed to the community through volunteer reading sessions and lived fulfilling days while cherishing her bonds with her family. Especially, Kathy's presence brought new joy and purpose to her life. In early October, as the streets of Boston began to display beautiful autumn foliage, Joanna noticed something that concerned her. It seemed Amanda had been in touch less frequently than before. Previously, they would chat 2 or 3 times a week, sharing light conversations like, "Kathy said this at the park today," or "Have you heard from Tom?" Recently, however, there were times when a week would pass without any communication. When Joanna called out of concern, Amanda would respond flustered, "Oh, mother-in-law, I'm sorry. I've been swamped." Initially, Joanna didn't think much of it. Even as a stay-at-home mom, taking care of a 5-year-old was challenging, especially with her husband on a long trip. It was only natural that she would be busy. Rather, Joanna worried that Amanda might be overdoing it and getting exhausted. So she would say, "If there's anything I can assist with, please let me know." Amanda would reply, "I'm fine. Thank you." But sometimes her tone lacked the cheerfulness it once had. The chances to see Kathy also seemed to be diminishing. When Joanna suggested, "How about we take Kathy to the zoo next Sunday?" Amanda often responded, "I'm sorry, but next Sunday doesn't work." Reasonable excuses followed, like, "Kathy has a slight cold, so I'd prefer to stay in," or "There's a friend's birthday party, and we need to prepare for her recital." Joanna thought it was natural for a mother to prioritize her child's health and schedule, so she understood, saying, "Of course, Kathy's health comes first." However, deep down, she felt a hint of loneliness. Her time with Kathy was the highlight of her week. Being close to her granddaughter and spending time together gave her a sense of purpose. Being kept from this left her with an indescribable emptiness. Yet, considering Amanda's situation, she felt it inappropriate to burden her daughter-in-law with her worries, so she kept her feelings to herself. One afternoon, while shopping at her usual supermarket, Joanna was selecting broccoli in the produce section when a familiar woman, Mrs. Johnson, who lived in the same apartment building and occasionally chatted with her in the elevator, approached. "Joanna, you look well. I haven't seen Tom's wife lately. Is everything okay?" Mrs. Johnson asked, looking concerned. She used to come shopping with Kathy often, but it had been about a month since she last saw them. Joanna was a bit taken aback. Now that Mrs. Johnson mentioned it, she hadn't seen Amanda and Kathy at the supermarket recently. "Now that you mention it, that's true," she replied, explaining, "but since her husband is on a long business trip, she probably prefers to stay home. It must be tough to shop alone with a child." Mrs. Johnson nodded in understanding, but added that children should get some fresh air. "Is Kathy doing well?" Joanna answered, "Yes, she's fine," but realized she hadn't seen Kathy in a while. She had only learned about her granddaughter's well-being through Amanda's updates. That evening, Joanna decided to call Tom, considering the time difference, to catch him after work. Tom answered, sounding tired. "Mom, what's wrong?" "Nothing urgent. I just wanted to check in on you. Is work going well?" "I'm busy, but it's going smoothly. Once this project is done, I'll be able to stay home for a bit." Tom's voice conveyed fatigue, yet also love for his family. "Are Amanda and Kathy doing okay? I haven't had a chance to reach out lately." Joanna paused before answering. "Amanda is managing. Handling everything at home alone must be tough." She thought about whether to discuss the recent changes. However, she felt a strong desire not to cause her son unnecessary worry. So she simply said, "Kathy is fine too. She's looking forward to your return." "I see. That's good. Take care of yourself too, Mom. Once the project wraps up, let's all have a nice meal together." After hanging up, Joanna gazed at the night view from her living room window, sensing subtle changes in her family dynamics recently. However, she couldn't pinpoint what they meant. Given the circumstances of a long business trip, perhaps each family member was trying to adjust. Amanda was likely also feeling confused and anxious about being away from her husband for an extended time for the first time. The following week, Joanna decided to call Amanda. "How are you doing lately? If something's bothering you, please don't hesitate to tell me." Amanda's voice sounded brighter than before. "Thank you, mother-in-law. Actually, I recently joined a group of mom friends and have been involved in various activities. Kathy has made new friends too, and she seems to be enjoying herself." "That's wonderful. Adapting to new environments is important." Joanna felt relieved. If Amanda was becoming more social and Kathy was making new friends, it made sense of the recent changes. "Next time, why don't we have tea together with those friends?" "That sounds nice if we can find the time," Amanda replied vaguely, adding, "But everyone is busy, so coordinating schedules is tough." The conversation flowed pleasantly, but Joanna felt a lingering discomfort. Amanda's tone lacked the naturalness it used to have. She felt as if Amanda was giving prepared responses, but couldn't pinpoint exactly what was amiss. So, she reassured herself, "I must be overthinking this." On the second Saturday of November, during a lovely autumn afternoon, Joanna was at the supermarket on Maple Street, doing her weekend shopping. As usual, she was pushing her cart through the produce section, selecting fresh tomatoes and lettuce. She planned to cook a special dinner for the first time in a while, taking her time to choose ingredients carefully. The store was lively with families, and children's laughter filled the air. While packing vegetables into bags, Joanna overheard a child's voice nearby. A small voice exclaimed, "I want this! I want this!" And she turned around, smiling warmly. Children always melted her heart. However, what she saw made her freeze. On the far side of the produce section, Near the frozen food aisle, a small girl was standing alone. From the back, the girl's hair color and figure looked familiar. Joanna's heart raced. Hoping it wasn't true, but wanting to see the child more clearly, she took a few steps closer. When the girl slowly turned around, Joanna's breath caught in her throat. It was unmistakably her beloved granddaughter, Kathy. Those striking blue eyes, small nose, and charming smile. Yet, Joanna's joy turned to confusion. Kathy's appearance was drastically different from usual. Instead of the cute dresses or blouses Joanna remembered, she wore dirty and torn clothing. The grimy sweatshirt had frayed sleeves, and the denim pants had a significant hole at the knee. Her shoes were muddy, with one shoelace untied. Her hair was disheveled, hanging in her face, and a thin layer of dirt coated her cheeks, which looked sunken. Joanna was about to call out to Kathy when a strange man emerged from behind her. The man, of average height with a sturdy build, wore casual clothes. He had short black hair and an unshaven face that didn't appear particularly threatening, but he was a complete stranger to Joanna. He spoke to Kathy. She nodded obediently and followed him. They paused in front of the frozen food shelves, where he picked up a frozen pizza. Kathy didn't express any desire for anything, simply standing quietly beside him. The scene resembled a familiar daily routine, but Joanna's mind spiraled with chaos. Why was Kathy there? Why was she wearing such dirty clothes? And who was this man? Where was Amanda? A flood of questions rushed through her mind. Initially, she considered calling out, but an instinctive sense of danger held her back, causing her to hesitate. Kathy's expression was also different from her usual bright and curious demeanor. She wore a tired and somewhat resigned look, which was not how a 5-year-old should appear. A mix of anxiety and anger surged within Joanna. The man and Kathy wandered through the store, stopping at the candy aisle and bread section. The man seemed to be selecting only the bare minimum of items, and when Kathy showed interest in something, he shook his head in refusal. Kathy didn't throw tantrums, but appeared to follow his lead. This submissive behavior heightened Joanna's anxiety. Joanna trailed them carefully, blending in with other shoppers. While maintaining her distance, she kept observing. Years of experience in the library had taught her how to read people, but the tension she felt in this situation was unprecedented. She could feel her hands trembling around the shopping cart. After paying at the register, the man and Kathy exited the supermarket. Joanna hurriedly finished her shopping, buying just the essentials before heading to the checkout. When the clerk asked, "Are you in a hurry?" she replied, "Yes, a little," and quickly left the store. In the parking lot, she spotted the man and Kathy getting into an old blue sedan. Joanna rushed to her car, trying to memorize the license plate number. The man sat in the driver's seat while Kathy was in the passenger seat. Normally, a 5-year-old should be in a car seat in the back, but there didn't seem to be one in this vehicle. As the car began to drive away, Joanna started her engine too. Though she had never done anything like this before, the thought of her granddaughter's safety spurred her on without hesitation. Keeping a safe distance, she followed the blue sedan as it navigated through residential areas and eventually headed downtown. While driving, Joanna considered various scenarios. Perhaps he was a friend of Amanda's, but if that were the case, why was Kathy in such rough shape? The thought of kidnapping crossed her mind, but Kathy didn't seem to be resisting. She appeared accustomed to this man. After about 15 minutes, the blue sedan pulled up to an old 3-story brick apartment building in a neighborhood that was not particularly upscale. Joanna watched as the man and Kathy exited the car and ascended the apartment stairs. After confirming they entered a unit on the 2nd floor, Joanna parked her car on a nearby street and approached the building. She could see light streaming from a 2nd-floor window. Quietly, she climbed the stairs of the building. The dimly lit hallway had the musty smell of aging structures. Standing outside the targeted apartment, she could hear multiple voices behind the door. Holding her breath, Joanna listened closely. Her heartbeat raced, feeling like it would burst from her chest. Along with a light shining through the crack of the door, she clearly heard several voices. Among them was unmistakably Amanda's voice. "Brian, thank you for taking care of Kathy again today." Amanda's tone was different from the refined and modest voice Joanna knew. It had a more intimate, flirtatious quality. "It really helps. Taking care of her alone is tough." "But Amanda, this is getting difficult," the man, presumably named Brian, responded. Looking after a child is more work than I expected. I'm single, so I'm not used to this kind of thing. Can't you reconsider?" Joanna was stunned. Amanda was leaving Kathy's care to a stranger. Moreover, this man clearly was not experienced with childcare and felt burdened by it. She couldn't comprehend why Amanda would do such a thing. "But our time together is important too, isn't it?" Amanda continued. "There's still over a month until Tom comes back. Do we have to keep sacrificing during that entire time? When Kathy is around, we can't even talk freely." Joanna leaned against the wall for support. The meaning of Amanda's words gradually became clearer. Her son's wife was having an affair while her husband was away on business, and she was pushing her daughter, who was in the way, onto her affair partner. The helpless, 5-year-old granddaughter was becoming a victim of selfish adult desires. "I understand, but taking care of a child is a big responsibility." Brian's voice reflected confusion. "What if something happens? I'm not a father. You worry too much. Kathy is a good child. She'll listen. Besides, you understand how precious our time together is to me, don't you?" Amanda's voice had a sickeningly sweet tone that Joanna had never heard before. "Unlike Tom, you really understand me. You're the only one who gets my feelings." Joanna felt nauseated. Amanda was speaking ill of her son while justifying her relationship with another man. Even worse, she was treating Kathy as a burden. Carefully peeking through the door crack, Joanna saw Amanda and Brian sitting closely on the sofa in the small living room. Amanda's attire was different from her usual modest housewife clothing. She wore a flashy blouse and a tight skirt. Her makeup was heavy, making her look like a completely different person. In the corner of the room, in front of a small television, Kathy was sitting alone. Her granddaughter stared blankly at the screen, devoid of her usual liveliness. The television volume was low, likely to avoid disrupting the adults' conversation. In front of Kathy was an open package of crackers, but she seemed to have barely touched them. Besides, Kathy has been getting used to it lately, hasn't she? Amanda continued. "She used to cry at first, but she doesn't do that anymore." Joanna's heart boiled with rage. Kathy had likely cried from anxiety, realizing her mother was abandoning her. Amanda's callousness in describing this as getting used to it made Joanna tremble uncontrollably. "But my apartment is so small, and I don't have child-friendly facilities," Brian said. "I don't even know what to feed her. Today at the supermarket, I just bought random things, but I'm not confident that this is right." This explained why Kathy had looked the way she did at the supermarket. Brian, lacking childcare experience, couldn't care for Kathy properly. The dirty clothes, messy hair, and gaunt face all made sense. Due to the adult's selfishness, a 5-year-old child was not receiving proper care. "You don't need to be so neurotic about it," Amanda chuckled lightly. "Children will grow up if you just feed them something. I'm asking you because it's challenging for me to raise her alone." Joanna was shocked. It was clear Amanda had completely given up her responsibilities as a mother. She wasn't raising Kathy with love, but treating her as an inconvenience. In the room, Kathy let out a small sigh. Though the adults didn't seem to notice, the sound pierced Joanna's ears painfully. That a 5-year-old child had to sigh in such a situation was heartbreaking. "Can you take care of her for a longer period next week?" Amanda asked. "I'm planning a weekend trip. I want to spend time peacefully, just the two of us all weekend." Brian's voice conveyed bewilderment. "Isn't that too long?" "Please, Brian, it's important time for us. When Tom comes back, we won't have this kind of freedom anymore." Joanna took out her cell phone. She could no longer listen. She needed to contact Tom immediately. But how would she convey this shocking truth? How would her gentle, family-loving son react upon learning of his wife's betrayal? Most importantly, Kathy's safety had to be the priority. Inside the apartment, Amanda and Brian continued their conversation, focused solely on their relationship and pleasure, with Kathy's well-being taking a back seat. Joanna quietly descended the stairs and left the building. As the evening sky turned purple, she dialed her son's number with trembling hands from her car. After several rings, Tom answered. "Mom, what's wrong calling at this hour?" Joanna took a deep breath. "Tom, I need to talk to you right away. It's very important. Do you have time now?" "Your voice sounds strange, Mom. Did something happen?" "It's about Kathy and Amanda, too," Joanna said, carefully choosing her words. "Can you come back immediately? Your daughter might be in danger." On the other end of the phone, Tom's breathing changed. "Mom, what exactly happened? Please tell me in detail." Joanna recounted everything she had witnessed. Tom booked a flight that same night and returned to Boston the next morning. Though it meant interrupting an important 3-month project, his daughter's safety took precedence over work. Tom's expression, when he met his mother at the airport, looked as if he had aged overnight. He was deeply hurt by the shock of his wife's betrayal and blamed himself for not protecting his daughter. "Mom, thank you so much. If you hadn't noticed," Tom said with a trembling voice. "Family members protect each other." Joanna placed her hand on her son's shoulder. "Now, let's focus on bringing Kathy back to safety." They immediately headed to Brian's apartment. Based on the photos Joanna had taken in her detailed account, Tom had prepared legal documents as well. Upon arriving at the apartment, Tom knocked on the door without hesitation. Brian, who opened the door, was shocked by the sudden appearance of the husband. Amanda's panicked voice could be heard from inside, along with Kathy's small voice calling, "Daddy." Tom calmly but firmly questioned them about the situation. Amanda initially tried desperately to deny everything, but when confronted with Joanna's testimony and photographic evidence, she slumped down as if surrendering. "Tom, let me explain. I was lonely. Without you here," Amanda began to excuse herself through tears, but Tom refused to accept any justification. "I can't forgive you for putting my daughter in such a situation." Tom's voice trembled with anger. "Kathy did nothing wrong. Why did you make her go through this?" Finally, Kathy cried with relief in Joanna's arms, her small voice saying, "Grandma, Daddy, I was scared," piercing the hearts of the adults. The ensuing legal proceedings moved quickly. Tom hired a skilled lawyer and filed for divorce, using Amanda's infidelity and inappropriate treatment of the child as evidence. Joanna's eyewitness account and the photos she took became crucial evidence, and Tom secured full custody of his daughter. Amanda lost her parental rights, receiving only limited visitation privileges. Brian, who had initially promised a future with Amanda, chose to end the relationship out of fear of legal troubles and public scrutiny. Amanda ultimately lost everything: her husband, her daughter, and even her affair partner. A year later, Tom and Kathy had settled into a new home just a 5-minute walk from Joanna's apartment. Tom had changed jobs to a local construction company, opting for a position that allowed him to cherish time with his daughter. Although his salary was lower than before, it paled in comparison to the value of family bonds. Kathy gradually regained her former brightness. Story time with her grandmother became even more cherished, and she adapted well to her new life with her father. Joanna's greatest treasure was Kathy's smile when she said, "With Daddy and Grandma here, I'm not afraid of anything." One Sunday afternoon, the three of them enjoyed a picnic in the park. Watching Kathy chase butterflies, Joanna told Tom, "Even with blood relations, without love, there is no family. True family is made up of those who care for and love each other with responsibility." Tom nodded thoughtfully. "I'm so grateful you were there, Mom. Without your love and courage, what would have happened to Kathy? We're family. Family members support each other until the end." Joanna smiled in response. Kathy ran up to them, her eyes sparkling. "Grandma, what book are you going to read to me next?" Joanna enveloped her granddaughter in a hug, replying, "I'll read you a story about love and courage." The three of them truly understood that genuine family love lies in the bonds that go beyond blood relations, where people protect and support each other. Together, they looked forward to a future filled with hope.